Hey, what's up, everybody? Beautiful, amazing people. The people who get it, the people who understand, the people coming together to fight for art, love, and justice, and just a little extra nacho cheese on their nachos. You know who you are. Fighting for the good stuff in this world. Uh, let's get in to what exactly is going to happen this year in Ukraine because we're hearing a lot of bullshit predictions out there, and I thought I'd give one that's not bullshit. I thought I'd give you the actual accurate analysis of what's going to happen in the proxy war in Ukraine. But before we get to that, I couldn't rob you people of this, not for 2 more seconds. This is the best video of 2023. And I look, I could put it off. I could save it as a teaser till later in the but I can't do it. I'm so excited about it that I have to show it to you now. And it's just for those of you who only are here to to find out what's going to happen in Ukraine, then I'm sorry, you fucked up. Because first things first, you have to see this video of police trying to deal with protesters in Germany. I believe they were blocking a coal. The protesters were protesting a coal mining operation. A lot of that going on in Germany right now, thanks to fill in something about the proxy war in Ukraine right now. And Russia and the United States bombed the pipeline. The US and UK bombed the pipeline between Russia and Germany. So Germany now needs energy. And so they're opening up all their coal mines again. And protesters, for an understandable reason, are not really cool with that. But what's amazing about this is I don't even tell you what's amazing about this. I just need to show you what's amazing about this. I present to you police officers getting stuck in mud. Oh, this is the best. Legit stuck in mud, and there's a protester dressed as a monk for some reason, but he's just walking around them, not being helpful at all. And the cop in the middle is the best because he pats her on the back. I think it's a her. And she is just stuck there forever. Hopelessly. And then the monk dude keeps putting down a sign. I assume it's a protest sign about the coal mines. He keeps putting it next to them. And then, I mean, this looks like a Monty Python sketch. And they keep throwing away his sign because he doesn't want the protest sign through. And the monk just keeps going to get it. And you can hear people cheering. So then they finally get her out. And now this guy's stuck. And then it ends with that. Just push him over. Push him on over. Oh my God. Oh, I could just have that on loop 24/7. And it would just make me happier. Honestly, you could just leave it running like in the background, like people do with CNN or some shit, where they just leave it on like it's background noise or elevator music or something. You could just this actually would have a use. This would actually cheer you up all day long. Amazing. So maybe this also something can be learned from this for protesters. If you are going to protest in a field, go ahead and spray some water down there, dig up some mud, and leave a mud trap for the cops because it is well worth it. Even if it only slows them down for 10 minutes, it will be the best 10 minutes of your life. No doubt. And the truth is, it doesn't even really matter what they were protesting. I mean, yes, I'm glad they were protesting the coal mines because fuck coal mines, fuck this, all these giant energy conglomerates that are destroying lives, destroying the environment. Absolutely. These people, yes, they're doing exactly what we should be doing. But just in general, I like to see cops fall over. So I mean, I don't know if much more needs to be said about it. It's my happy place. It's my It's just where I go to when I need to feel better about anything in the world. It is this video of cops getting stuck in mud. Because fuck them. And here's the reason. I understand not all cops are bad people. Many of them work for a bad system. They work for a system that requires them to enforce laws that shouldn't be laws, arrest people that shouldn't be arrested, and support the ruling class. That is the main reason they're there. So it doesn't mean every person you've ever met who's a cop is, oh, what a fucking asshole. Some of them are not. But generally, if they're truly not assholes, like really not assholes, they don't last long in the police. They can't really do that kind of work forever. They usually get they get kind of co-opted. If they went in being good people, they come out the other side being assholes. But it's a system that requires this type of enforcement, and especially when they're there to enforce oil companies, coal companies, the worst type of companies in the world, and they're there to defend them. The cops show up to defend them against the people they have sworn to protect. Because let's be honest about this. Coal, oil, all of it, destroying the planet, destroying our ability to live here, destroying our ability to have a successful society, a successful existence on this planet. That is where we are headed. And the longer we keep digging things up out of the ground and fucking burning them rather than switching to renewable energy, to sustainable energy, then the more we will kill ourselves and perhaps to the point of extinction. But so then you have people showing up to say, stop this, don't let this keep going, stand on the side of what is right, and you send in this fist of the fascist state to protect the corporations against the human beings, protect an inanimate object like a pipeline against the human beings, so protect an inanimate object like a coal mining extractor, a coal extraction mountaintop removal truck or plow or whatever the other. It should just be called a pillager. Protect the pillagers against average human beings who want to have a livable life. A livable life is always the best kind of life, I find. Like, if you're going to have a life, it should be livable. And so, you see these lines of cops like you see here. I mean, luckily they're falling down in mud and it makes it the best thing ever. But if they weren't falling down in mud, you'd see this line of cops protecting an inanimate object like a pipeline or a coal vehicle against human beings. And it's like, which side are you on? Oh, we're on the side of the inanimate object. We're protecting that pipe thingy there. Like, I always wondered, does it matter what type of inanimate object it is? Like, if it were just like a little tricycle or like a bookshelf, and you had a line of cops protecting that against a bunch of actual human people who say that's going to destroy our lives. I don't know why a tricycle will destroy their lives, but let's just say, for the analogy to work, it has to. And they're like, no, we got to protect this tricycle. It's insanity. And the fact that anyone, that's when you find out how effectively our social engineering has worked, the social engineering of us, is that there are a lot of people out there that are like, yeah, the cops are doing right, protecting that inanimate object from the humans. Good. Yeah, it should be. Those humans should have known better than to try and stop that inanimate object. All right, I just had to show that video to you because it is the best thing so far in 2023. And it may very well be the best thing for all of 2023. Amazing to see that. But yeah, I couldn't keep that from you for 1 second longer. But let's move on to what the title article, the title topic of this live stream hour that I get to spend with you. And that is what's going to happen in Ukraine. Oh, quick note. I'm back on Spotify because they banned me. I'm banned on my main YouTube channel. Over 2,000 videos, all that banned. They banned me, so I'm back on Spotify. But my podcast has a new name. It's called The Lee Camp Show. So if you want to hear this live stream and this type of content, but you don't always have time to look up the videos. Sometimes you're on the drive to work or whatever, and you want to just play it audio wise. And of course, it won't work with that video, but if the cop's stuck in mud. But usually, most of my stuff is fine with just audio. Look up the Lee Camp Show on Spotify. Okay, so I've had Scott Ritter on a couple of times, former UN weapons inspector, generally right about everything. It's, when it has to do with U.S. proxy wars and U.S. invasions. He was completely right about the invasion of Iraq, even though we all meaning the media, not me, but the mainstream media, even though the mainstream media and a lot of America acted like he was insane, he was absolutely right about everything. So I've had him on for most recent time was a couple months ago, but he has put out a new article on the 2023 outlook for Ukraine. And I think he's got it right, because he generally does. He says, after almost a year of dramatic action where initial Russian advances were met with impressive Ukrainian counteroffensives, the front lines in the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian conflict have stabilized, with both sides engaged in bloody positional warfare, grinding each other down in a brutal attritional contest while awaiting the next major initiative from either side. And many of you, someone's asking if the Lee Camp Show is available on Apple too. So look up, there's two things it could be named. Either it's called the Lee Camp Show or it's called Moment of Clarity. So look up both, and one of those should be on all of the various podcast platforms. So, now you may be hearing when you hear him say that, Ukraine has done an impressive job defending itself against the Russian invasion. And in case I need to repeat this again, I'm against all of this. I'm against war. I'm anti-war. I don't think people should have to kill each other to work out their differences. So I'm opposed to the Russian invasion, but I'm also opposed to everything the U.S. did to evoke the Russian invasion, to create a proxy war in Ukraine. And yes, we will get into how the U.S. has made sure to elongate this in a moment. We'll get into how a peace deal was going to be signed and the U.S. and UK stopped it. We'll get into that in a minute. But you may hear him say that the Ukraine's done an impressive job, and you may be yelling at your screen, yeah, with U.S. weaponry. Don't worry. He knows that, and he says that. Recent admissions on the part of officials responsible for the adoption of the Minsk Accords of both 2014 and 2015. So many of you may already know that the Minsk Accords were attempts to get to get Ukraine and Russia to and NATO to agree to certain things so that there would not be war, so there would not be a Russian invasion. But recently, various members of that pact that were present at it, such as former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and former French President Francois Hollande and former German Chancellor Angela Merkel, have said that the goal of the Minsk agreements for the promotion of a peaceful resolution to the post-2014 conflict in Donbass between the Ukrainian government and pro-Russian separatists was a lie. All of those, and I covered the Angela Merkel angle. Get it? The Angela Merkel. Okay. I covered it on the live stream recently. That they have said that it was actually the Minsk agreements, which appeared to be for peace, to create peace, were actually to just hold off a Russian invasion long enough for Ukraine to arm itself more heavily, rather than actually meaning anything that they said in the agreements. Now, if they had actually abided by the agreement, there would not be a war right now. There would not have been a Russian invasion. We would not be at this place where millions of Ukrainians are fleeing and thousands are dying. We wouldn't be here right now if they had actually abided by the agreement, they being Ukraine, NATO, Germany, US, UK. But they never intended, they've now admitted that they never intended to abide by the agreement. They just wanted to delay a Russian response to the crimes, the killings in Donbass. So 15,000 people killed by Ukrainian Nazis in Donbass. And they just wanted to delay it so Ukraine could arm itself more heavily. He then says, simply put, the trajectory of the Russian diplomacy was conflict avoidance. The same cannot be said of either Ukraine or Western partners who were pursuing a policy of NATO expansion linked to the resolution of the Donbass, Crimea crises through military means. Denied a decisive victory, so he's now moving to after February, when Russia seemed to think they could achieve a quick victory via hitting a few strategic targets. But that was not the case because the U.S. had heavily armed, U.S. and NATO had heavily armed Ukraine, and also because Russia and Ukraine were on the cusp of formalizing an agreement along these lines. Sorry, I skipped over which lines those are. The Russians seemed prepared to accept an outcome which limited Russian territorial gains to the Donbass and Crimea, and an agreement by Ukraine not to join NATO. So Donbass would be an independent republic, Crimea would remain with Russia, and Ukraine would not join NATO. Those three things, you have peace. And those three things, by the way, are going to happen anyway at the end of this. Now, something far more may happen, but those three things are almost definitely going to happen at the end of this, assuming we don't end up in nuclear fucking hellhole where there's 8 of us still alive eating Twinkies that are 17 years old and taste exactly the same. This negotiation, indeed, Russia and Ukraine were on the cusp of formalizing an agreement along these lines in negotiations scheduled to take place in Istanbul in early April 2022. This negotiation, however, was scuttled. I covered this as well a while back, following the intervention of then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He admitted as much to Macron. Boris Johnson had public admissions that this is what he did. He went to Ukraine and told them to end peace talks. And of course, when we say Boris Johnson, what was Boris Johnson acting as? An emissary of the United States. This is the U.S. empire, and the U.S. is just letting these other people play in it. I mean, it's it has to do with the U.S. petrodollar, the U.S. military that has 900 bases around the world. So the impressive and well, I don't need to qualify everything. You guys get it. You guys, I don't need to act like you don't know these. You know everything, but you don't know what I'm about to get to. The impressive I don't think. Maybe you do. I don't know. What the fuck do I know? Who the fuck knows? Scott Ritter knows more than I know on this subject, so that's why I'm reading from him. The impressive Ukrainian military accomplishments that were facilitated through the provision and military aid by NATO came at a huge cost in lives and material. Ukrainian losses have been heavy. Now, this is the key part of what's going to happen in 2023. With the battle lines currently stabilized, the question of where the war goes from here comes down to basic military math. In short, a causal relationship between two basic equations revolving around burn rates, which is the military term for how quickly losses are sustained. And don't you love the euphemism? And I know he's talking as a military man because he's former Marine, but this is how the military talks. They talk about burn rate. What's our burn rate? Like in certain circumstances, like this one, that means how often, how many people are we killing, and can we keep sustaining that? These are human beings. These are human beings dying in your proxy war, and yet our military, and one's got to assume our ruling elite, our ruling class, when they're talking to the military leaders, talk about burn rates. How much of our cannon fodder, human beings, are we plowing through? Is our burn rate low enough that we can just keep allowing our own people to be murdered and we'll still win? I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, but it makes sense. They do it for two reasons. One is to sanitize it for their own fucking psyches. I mean, most of them are sociopaths, so maybe they wouldn't care anyway. But it's a lot nicer if you're gonna write a military report to say, burn rates, than to say, well, the number of our own soldiers we're having murdered at a clip of 1,000 a week. We could last through fucking 4 more years at that rate. Yeah. So Okay, so two basic equations revolving around burn rates versus replenishment rates. How quickly such losses can be replaced. Now, again, keep in mind, these are human beings. They can't be replaced. That was somebody's goddamn son or daughter or uncle or crazy great uncle who for some odd reason joined the front lines of the fight in Ukraine at age 97. What a nutbag. But it's like these are people, but no, to the military, that doesn't matter. You are not a human being. You are a chunk of flesh that can be used for something. And, this goes for militaries around the world. I don't want to only say the United States is the one that uses these euphemisms for destroying human lives. But with the battle lines currently stabilized, wow, I did that line a long time ago. We don't need to go over that. So he's saying he just said the calculus, right? Burn rate versus replenishment rate, and he says that calculus bodes ill for Ukraine. Despite Ukraine's insistence on its need for more tanks, it literally has asked the U.S. for tanks, or Zelensky has. Armored fighting vehicles, artillery, and air defense. And while new military aid appears to be forthcoming, it will be late to the battle and in insufficient quantities to have a game-winning impact on the battlefield. Russia, on the other hand, is in the process of finalizing a mobilization of more than 300,000 men who appear to be equipped with the most advanced weapon system in the Russian arsenal. When these forces arrive in full on the battlefield sometime by the end of January, Ukraine will have no response. This harsh reality, when coupled with the annexation by Russia of more than 20% of Ukraine's territory and infrastructure damage approaching $1 trillion, bodes ill for the future of Ukraine. And in case I need to repeat it one more time, I'm not cheering on anything. I don't want war. I'm anti-war. So when the U.S. creates a proxy war, I want an end to that proxy war. Now, it could end right now at a peace table. So if I have a side in this, and I hope a lot of you are the same, my side is fucking peace table. If there were a big foam number one hand that said peace table, I would wave that one, okay? I'd have on the t-shirt that says, I'm on team peace table. Instead, we're told by both sides, by our mainstream media, by everyone, no, you can't be for peace. You can only be for U.S. arming Ukraine to destroy Russia or Russia destroying Ukraine. Those are your sides. No, guess what? There is another option. And guess what else? It's the only way this will ever end. We're just deciding how long, by we, I mean these militaries, and so not really we, but these ruling elite parties. We're deciding how long we're going to have people killed, maimed, and lives destroyed before we get to the peace table. So guess what? My side wins in the end, but I wish my side were winning right now. I wish team peace table were happening fucking now. So, all right. Russia's mobilizing 300,000 men. Both Ukraine and its Western partners are struggling to sustain the conflict they initiated when they rejected possible peace deal in April 2022. I just talked about that. Russia, after starting on its back feet, has largely regrouped and appears poised to resume large-scale offensive operations. Moreover, given the duplicitous history of the Minsk Accords, and this is a key point. This is of the two or three key points that you should really walk away from this article with. This is one of them. Considering how duplicitous we now know the West, including Ukraine, was with the Minsk Accords, it is unlikely Russia can be dissuaded from undertaking its military offensive through diplomacy. As such, 2023 appears to be shaping up as a year of continued violent confrontation, leading to a decisive Russian military victory. So his point is, we now know the Minsk Accords, 2 rounds of them, were meaningless because the West never, NATO countries and Ukraine never intended to actually abide by it. They never intended to stop trying to bring Ukraine into NATO. They never intended to stop arming Ukraine with NATO weaponry. They never intended any of that. And so they signed those agreements knowing they wouldn't keep them. And so Russia has now had 2 rounds of agreements that they signed and kept their side of. and watched as the other side did not. It's kind of similar to the Iran nuclear deal. Iran did keep their side of the nuclear deal. The U.S. then pulled out of it and assassinated their top general with a drone bomb to the upper head region. So when that's your response to being in a peace deal with someone or a deal of any kind, it's understandable the other side might be like, we're not going to get into another deal with you because it seems unlikely you'd abide by it, considering what happened the last time. So key points there made by Scott Ritter, former UN weapons inspector. And, it's I've read similar estimates elsewhere. I think that it's not that Russia hasn't sustained, hasn't had hard hits in this war and hasn't had losses. But compared to Ukraine, they have more weaponry, they have more men, they have more, they're larger, they have more economic ties. And the U.S. may keep sending billions and billions of dollars, over $100 billion now, but that's just not going to do it. Not to mention upwards of 70% of those arms that are going to Ukraine are not ending up on the front lines. Many are sold in the black market. But anyway, sorry, I got a dry throat this morning. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've been smoking so much. I don't smoke, but I wish I did so I could justify other activities. No, I'm just kidding. Let's move on to the next story. Peru's I've talked about what's going on in Peru. Peru saw a U.S.-backed coup. Actually, let me pull this down while I set it up. Peru saw a U.S.-backed coup just a few weeks ago, and the president Castillo was taken out, and I mean, I don't mean killed. I mean taken out of office, arrested, and in Peru they have a kind of silly constitution where all it takes is 60% of the Congress to vote to withdraw the president or to bring charges against the president, and that's all it takes, and the president's gone. So that I could see that being a nice thing if the president is a corrupt, horrible person, but it also means that when a left-winger gets into the presidency, they will almost always be withdrawn or charged or arrested fairly quickly. But so he was replaced by his vice president, who is far more in line with the U.S. with the U.S. and our imperial needs. And now Peru's prosecutor's office has initiated preliminary investigation against the new president, President Boluarte, for genocide. It says that this Tuesday, January 10th, and there's large-scale protests all across Peru against Castillo being pulled out in this U.S.-backed lawfare coup. This Tuesday, January 10th, the Peruvian prosecutor's office ordered a preliminary investigation to be initiated against the de facto president, Dina Boluarte, for crimes of genocide, qualified homicide, and serious injuries regarding the protests that have shaken the country after the ousting of Pedro Castillo as head of state. Several members of Boluarte's cabinet will also be investigated. And here's the thing. The people are demanding, the main thing the people are demanding are, oh, and by the way, if anyone puts in super chats and various other comments, I will be addressing them at the end of the live stream. The people are protesting. The main thing they're demanding is immediate elections. And I assume they would want Castillo to be back on the ballot, because the people of Peru still want Castillo to be president. And they know that if elections were allowed, then he would likely win, or someone someone, similar to him. So they're demanding elections, but the coup government is not giving in so far. Since the beginning of the national protest last December, which demand Boluarte's resignation, the closure of Congress, early elections, Constituent Assembly, and the release of President Pedro Castillo, the death toll has reached 46 so far. This Monday, Boluarte stated that she does not understand the reasons for the protests in the Department of Puno, during which at least 18 people have died and over 112 have been injured so far in massacres of police repression. So this is the latest development in this ongoing lawfare coup, U.S.-backed. Who was it? The U.S. diplomat met with the head of defense in Peru, who was key in the coup, a key player in the coup. A U.S. diplomat who was former CIA met with the head of Peru's defense the day before the coup happened. It's like an obvious connection between U.S. Backing and U.S. advisory role in this coup. And as you can see, it continues. It's an ongoing story. And hopefully the people can stay in the streets, although obviously the many are dying in this. So, but yes, they are apparently looking into charges against her. All right, I'm going to move on to another story, but I have new information on the gut-wrenching inequality in this world, just astronomical inequality. And of course, this is at the heart of so much of the misery we see. And so I'll be getting into that in a second. I'll be getting into the Microsoft the company is switching to unlimited paid time off. And as you might be thinking, as was I when I first heard that, I was like, wow, that's great. I bet that's because workers have more power now. They demanded it and it's happening. But it's trickier than that. It actually might not be good for workers. And it's tricky. So I'm going to reveal why that is not necessarily a good thing. And I'm going to get into, I don't think I've ever done this on a live stream. I'm going to play a Jerry Seinfeld clip and analyze it and show you why it is, I'll just say ignorant. I'll just say ignorant of everything that's going on in the world and how our system works. And it kind of brings me full circle, because Jerry Seinfeld in certain ways was what got me into comedy when I was like 13, 14 years old. So I'm attacking my heroes. It has to happen. Houdini named himself, the great magician Houdini named himself after the magician Houdin. So he was like a little Houdin, a Houdini, and then put out a book trashing Houdin as a liar and a fraud. So maybe that's what I'm doing. I'm not calling Seinfeld a liar and a fraud. I'm going to analyze, and this Seinfeld clip I'm going to play represents so much of what we see in the comedy world now, and is exactly why so few comedians actually get to what matters. So few comedians actually address the true harm to society and why so many of us are suffering and miserable. And anyway, I'll get into all that in a minute. But let's start with, and please become a member at leecamp.net. In a few minutes, this live stream will continue at rumble.com/leecamp. If you're already watching there, it's already going there, and it's completely free to watch there. So rumble.com/leecamp. And please, when you go over there, if the least you do is this one thing, please do this one thing. Click the green follow so that I can have more subscribers at Rumble. It helps my algorithm. It will, I don't know if it does it every time, but it'll alert you to my live streams, etc. So click the green follow button. On YouTube, it's called subscribe. Rumble, it's called follow. I'm going to get to that. I'm also going to get to Rolling Stone magazine talking about me. I'll get into that too. Rolling Stone magazine had a mention of yours truly, and it's the first non-attack mention of me in mainstream media. I'd say since before Redacted Tonight. I'd say in 9 years, if we consider Rolling Stone mainstream media. It's the first non-attack. Because the moment I started Redacted Tonight, they were like, this guy's gotten too big for us, but we're going to have an anti-capitalist, anti-imperial. Nah, fuck you. No, we're not doing that. We're going to attack him every day, all day. So this would be the first semi-positive. It's kind of more factual than anything, but vaguely positive mention of me that wasn't an attack at all. All right. But let's do this first before we head over to Rumble. But I hope you will join me on Rumble. Rumble.com/LeeCamp. Okay, so gut-wrenching inequality across the world. And those numbers keep getting worse. They never get better, do they? They never seem to get better. Wonder why that is. The world's richest 1% have captured over 63% of all wealth generated since 2020, according to Oxfam. The top 1%, I have to say these numbers over and over. You may think it's patronizing. It's because I can't get them into my head. I can't. They're so astronomically insane that they are Kanye West insane, these numbers. And so I have to say them multiple times to just ram it into to make it make any sense. 63% of all wealth created since 2020, basically since the earlier times of the pandemic, has gone to the 1%, which is just a perfect example of shock doctrine. The pandemic was a world shock, and they used it overwhelmingly to their advantage. They just sent all the money to the top. The world's richest 1% captured over 2/3 of all wealth created by humanity since 2020. And I'll just add, I like talking about the different layers of reality, the different layers of understanding. And sometimes there are actually very good, well-intending articles or people that it's not that they're doing it because they're trying to be nefarious or villainous. They're just using the terminology that we commonly use. And I'd still like to break it down. So when you use the term wealth, well, in this article and in Oxfam's report, and the way I often use it, we talk about wealth as just money and maybe resources. But of course, that is it's a distortion. It's a squeezing and throttling and strangling of what could be wealth. Like you could be wealthy in terms of friends and family. You could be wealthy in terms of happiness. You could be wealthy in terms of your health. But instead, we only use it to mean money and sometimes oil or gold or something. And that it shows that it really is indicative of the sickness of our system, that is how we view wealth, is just money. But anyway, so when you hear them say wealth, they mean money. The report titled Survival of the Richest notes that the richest 1% of the world's population captured over $26 trillion. 26. That number. Don't try and think about that number, or your brain it'll just leak out your asshole. No, do not try and process the number 26 trillion. If you make $40,000 a year after taxes, which a lot of Americans do, that's pretty damn good salary. $40,000 after taxes, it would take you it's something like 520 or 525 million years to make 21 trillion. The reason I know 21 trillion is because that's the unaccounted for adjustments at the Pentagon. So add an extra 5 trillion to that. But so yeah, 550, let's say, million years. So you better get started now, is what I'm saying. If you want to make $26 trillion, you're going to have to work for 550 million years. You should probably get started soon. Because it's just every minute, like every week you don't get started is just another week added to the end. You know what I'm saying? So just get going now. Omar in the comments has added that 1 trillion seconds is 32,000 years. These numbers they make no sense. They make no sense. All right. So 1% has gotten 63%, $26 trillion of the $42 trillion created since 2020. Nearly twice the $16 trillion that went to the rest of the population. Oxfam notes that the rate of concentration of wealth has been faster in the first 2 years of the new decade than ever before. In the previous decade, the super rich had stolen. Expropriated is a nice term for stolen. Nearly 54% of the total wealth created. The report was released on the occasion of the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos. That's where all the worst twat bags in the world get together and decide how they'd like to rule the world. And, you know, some people, I do cover the World Economic Forum. I will talk about it. I do talk about it being awful. I talk about them being awful. I talk about them being psychopaths. So anyone who thinks I don't mention it, I do. I just don't do whole episodes on it. Because to me, when the richest dicks in the world, when the richest psychopaths in the world get together and have a meeting, it's no different than every other day. Every other day, they're Zooming with each other. They're calling each other. All of the shit that they say at Davos, that they say at the WEF, they can say behind closed doors or something worse. So it's not that I don't think it means anything. I don't give it the weight that some people give it. People used to give it to that kind of weight to Bilderberg meetings. They used to say, oh, they got together. They got together. And it's like, yeah, they're shitty. They're awful. They're terrible psychopaths. But them getting together it's just the same shit. They're doing the same shit that day. They get together in Davos and eat exotic penguin heads, filled with exotic fucking bald eagle eggs. The day they do that is it's normally Tuesday for them. We just don't talk about it. Yeah. It's not that I think it's nothing. I think the people are overstating it and acting like those things are not going on every day. My favorite is when people mention, I'm sorry, I've completely left this. No, I guess we're still talking about inequality and rich assholes. So never mind. I'm not on too much of a tangent here. But my favorite was when people go, well, the Great Reset says there's going to be surveillance of your life every moment. And I'm like, dude, what do you think's going on right now? Endless surveillance. They have your data on your phone of everywhere you've gone, assuming you leave your location services on. And they have AI that can figure out all the places you've gone and decide whether they don't like where you've gone. So it's like, yes, could it get worse? Absolutely. It can get worse. But why are we not talking about it every goddamn day rather than just being like, one day they're going to do the Great Reset and they're going to watch us? It's like, dude, I got bad news for you. I got bad news for what's already happening. Anyway, so then this article, which is by the People's Dispatch, goes on to give one of the weaker solutions for what needs to be done. They say higher taxes on the rich is extremely necessary now. Yeah, it is fucking necessary now. You know what else is? Guillotines. Like this is the lightest. This is why the top 1% should be really considering the higher tax rate, because that's going to help them avoid the guillotines. Like this is the lightest of all responses to the fact that the top 1% have stolen 63% of all quote unquote wealth over the past 2 years. Yeah. I don't think higher taxes is all that needs to be done. I think we need to junk capitalism. Capitalism needs to be put in the trash bin of history. And if you listen to anyone, if you watch any other independent media, any other talking heads, any other opinion shows, and they aren't at minimum heavily criticizing capitalism, saying the word capitalism, and even better, saying we got to fucking trash capitalism and evolve past capitalism to better systems than capitalism, then you probably should ignore most of what they're saying because they haven't gotten to the heart of it yet. I'm not saying it's got to be every word. I cover a lot of stories where it's not just capitalism, but it's at the heart of most of these issues. And if you're watching other shows that don't want to tell you that, then they either don't understand it or they're hiding it from you because they think it hurts their view rates. Which, if you're in this to win it, if you really want to see change, if you really want to see a better world, if you really, and I'm speaking to other talking heads, if you really want to see fucking equality and sustainability and a world where people can live and not worry that there's going to be no future and no planet left, if you really want to see that, and you don't just want to see your click rates go up, you really want to see that thing, then it shouldn't fucking matter to you. I don't know if my clicks are going down this minute on this show or not, but I don't fucking care. I'd be saying it either way. And maybe this is why, one of the many reasons I don't have a show on NBC late night. All right, and we're going to get to some more notes on capitalism here in a second, but this live stream will continue at rumble.com/Lee Camp. As I said, my podcast is back on Spotify. It's just called The Lee Camp Show now. I had to create a new one because they banned my old one, Moment of Clarity, claiming that my content couldn't be there, but didn't give me any reasons. And so I've just created a new one. We'll see if they ban that one. I don't think they will, because it seems like some of the heat is coming off me a little bit. Some of the shadow banning is slightly lightening up. Certainly not going to give me my YouTube channel back, though. I can tell you that much. So that's why I'm headed over to rumble.com/Lee Camp. And speaking of that, I'll tell you now why I was mentioned in Rolling Stone magazine. But for those of you who are so lazy you can't join me over at rumble.com/Lee Camp right now, I hope you will still become a member at leecamp.net. You can become a member for free, but I hope you will become a sustaining member, because that's the only way I support this show. That's the only way I keep it going. I am not working for any big corporation. That's for goddamn sure. I don't know why. They don't seem to like me. I'm not. If anybody has a reason and you could send it in. Also, I'm going to address, at the end of this live stream, I'm going to address some of the comments. Obviously, there's hundreds of comments, so I can't address many of them, but I will address some of them in a few minutes. But